I do promise you that there are people here represented at the gathering who aren't all exclusively working for Sorted Magazine, but I have another friend who's also from Sorted Magazine, amongst other things, to come and talk to you. I've called him Charlie. That's not his name. His name is Chris. But just clarify for everybody else. What's your name?
It's Chris, although Charlie's fine.
Well, yeah, we call you Charlie from now, or Charlie Chris. It's okay. Okay. So, Chris, what are you doing at the gathering this year?
So we have a group from our church, which is called Urban Crofters in Cardiff. It's a men's ministry called the Praus Movement. So lots of guys here. We're just here to connect with other guys, listen to hear about the gospel, bring people who are coming into relationship with Christ. We're just here to enjoy, have a good time.
Cool. And we actually met on Friday when you were struggling to put a tent up, but apparently that's now up. And I'm presuming it is, otherwise you'd be probably cold.
I mean, you can't prove that I was struggling, can you? Oh, no, you've got video evidence. I've got to say yes, and I did struggle.
No, you can't lie. Okay, so let's just start. So Sorted Magazine, and we'll move on to the other project in a moment. But with Sorted Mag, what is it you do for that magazine?
So a couple of things. So I write a weekly feature called the New Dad Diaries, which is basically it's my mistakes in my first year of fatherhood, that steep learning curve for everyone in the whole world to see. But we have great guests who I interview as part of that. So Rob Parsons from Care for the Family, Carrie Casey, who was the President Obama's policy guide on fatherhood. We've had Commando Dad, who's Prince William's go-to for advice. So it affects everybody. So do that. And I also write special features on men's issues. So for the magazine, which includes fatherlessness, it includes poverty, how we can end it, get out of it, all sorts of things, which hopefully help to improve the lives of our readers, really.
I was a stay-at-home dad for about 15 years, and I read a few books on parenting. Nothing prepares you for the moment when you're basically coming home from your child. You've got them in a little carrier of some sort. You're walking out of the hospital, and all of a sudden you realise, not you're on your own, but basically you're on your own. And I look back and think, I can't believe we did that, and I can't believe we did this. So I'm really glad there's something that's helping other guys. How did you get into writing that for Steve?
Well, to be honest with you, so I grew up and my dad left when I was 2. And I had a stepfather who wasn't a good man, and I still loved him, and sadly died when I was 17. And the reality is, part of it was a learning process for me, that I didn't have anyone to go to. And so I wanted to write something which I could learn as I'm going, and I could interview great people who actually knew what they were doing, and go about that way. And I was thinking about the dads like my real dad, and how he would have been struggling, and that's why he left. It's really tough being a dad that first year, and so it's written for guys like that to help articulate the tough stuff, and hopefully give them hope and ways through it.
And guys need hope. I remember as a dad turning up to my first toddler group thinking, this is me now, I've quit my job, I'm no longer driving trucks, and I turned up with my then 3-week-old son, because my wife was supposed to have this nice gap. Oh, you can go back for some training, and all of a sudden there's me and there's Steve and this little tiny fragile thing that pretty much fits in my hand. Joe's breastfeeding, so we've got express milk. Yeah, that's all sorted. And I'm now responsible for this little person. Joe's had 9 months of preparation. Now he's with me. How do you help someone get past that moment of unbridled, white-knuckled fear?
Yeah, it's a great question, because that weight of responsibility, it comes, I remember putting her in the car, and I drove, it was a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, and I think I drove about 10 miles an hour all the way home, But yeah, it is a really tough thing to get across. My learning curve, because I wanted to be a perfect father, there is no such thing other than the Heavenly Father. Just be yourself. You're going to make mistakes, but all they need is your presence, your love, and your time. And if you get those 3 things, it may not look perfect, but that baby's getting everything they need.
It's really easy. We can look around and we can see a compare and think, look at that child's doing great and that family's fantastic. But once you get in that front door, you realise maybe they're not. And yes, the house might be immaculate, but at what cost? And it's I guess my message as well, which I'm guessing you're probably endorsing them, but is don't look at how others are doing to verify whether you're doing a good job or not. Because as a parent, you just need to turn up, and that's all I would say really that our children desperately long for.
That's absolutely spot on, and I think just to add to that, really, like your instincts are pretty good. You know how to protect your baby. You know what she's needs. Not straight away, because quite often that's a big puzzle and a half. But you have everything you need. And my only other advice is speak to other dads. Like they may have different ways of doing stuff. They've still got the same challenges, still going through the same stuff. You've got this.
So that's how you got to Sorted Mag. Right, now the other one, let me get this right, it's the Praus Movement. Just tell us a little bit about that.
So yeah, this is a men's ministry, and it came out of the work I was doing with Sorted, because speaking to lots of men, you start to notice themes and patterns that are holding people back from living the life that Jesus wants them to live, which is a full one and a good one. And so the Praus Movement, the word prowess, it basically comes from the one place in the whole of Scripture where Jesus describes his heart, the heart being the very epicenter, the very core of who he is. And he says, I'm gentle and lowly in heart. And gentle in the original Greek was prowess, which is just so powerful because it means not meek, not mild, not doormat. It means to have all of your great strength under control and used for the betterment of others. And when you get that, all of those strengths that perhaps you have that are unique to you, that maybe, you come to a men's festival and you feel a bit sort of intimidated. Am I manly enough? Actually, yeah, you are, just as you are. So as long as you learn to harness it like Jesus did, like other great men have in the past, and use it in service to others, you're there.
I don't talk about this too many times, but I used to actually deliver part of a breastfeeding workshop to new mums to be, because I was at a meeting one time through Sure Start, which, if you're not familiar, that it's it was sort of a Labour government thing here in the UK, where we're supporting for parents, like children's centres with toy groups and stuff. So I was there with next to this midwife, and they were talking about breastfeeding, and I got a bit upset about how some of the workers were talking, and this midwife went at them, and I was really in a defence. And she said afterwards, "What are you doing this afternoon? Do you fancy coming to talk to mums about what you're doing?" And then started three years of me delivering these talks. We got filmed for Sky TV. We needed a dad that's doing something interesting, so they came down and filmed us for a few days, because I would just go to his mum and say, "Look, you don't have all the answers." But the one thing I would say to them is, because this is the common question, how am I going to love my baby? How is my father, which is what I was going to, how is the husband, the dad, how is he going to be able to come involved in getting with the oldest child? Will he be able to love the child? And I would always have the same answer. And unfortunately, of course, pregnant women, very late on, fairly emotional. And I would say, look, there is no way that the father of your child is not going to be able to love that child. I don't care what they say. They're going to love them. They may show it in different ways, but it's there. And it was great to see how we'd set them free a little bit, because that was the greatest fear.
And that's so good, because I think certainly my experience in the first few months in particular is that the messaging, from the health services and the midwives who ignore you and also is the dad isn't really that important, and actually he is, and the best thing mum and dad can do, whether they're together or not, is to find a way to work together. That's the design that God has, and you complement each other that way.
Absolutely. Where does faith fit into you for all of this? I mean, you just said this is how God's designed you to be, but where does faith fit into you as a dad, as a writer, in your job and the Praus Movement? How does faith kind of interact with all of those things and tie it all together?
It's the central thing. It's the motivation. It's the love that sometimes I don't understand. I can't carry all of this love in me, but I know that God is just pouring through. And in terms of just the wisdom that you get from God, believe it or not, He knows a thing or two. And I've fallen into the trap of thinking I know better quite often. But yeah, but He is definitely there. I'll just give you a quick anecdote to that. I was desperate to build a really great bond with Fia. My experiences with my dad. I wanted to do things differently, and I said to him how, and then it was revealed to me that he says, throughout the Bible 365 times, do not fear. And the way you don't fear is by having a really close relationship and bond with God. And I sort of came up with three, I guess, targets for Thea, my daughter, to have with me when she's going through a tough time and she needs to be brave and courageous. And the first was she needs to know that I love her. Second, she needs to know that whatever she's going through, Dad's with her. And thirdly, as a result of that, it's all going to be okay, some way, somehow. And so just all the time, God is giving me wisdom, without which the new Dad's Aries would be quite a disaster class, really.
How can people find out more about the Praus Movement? Are you website, social media? How do people contact you?
Yes, so we've got a really big website with lots of resources. It's www.gentleandstrong.com. So for dads, we've got something called the Fatherhood, which is full of articles, wisdom for guys on being a dad, and some moral support for everyone. We've got things like special reports on that we did for Sorted. So Sorted allow us to put things on the website. We've got something called Light the Flare. So, even the best mountain climber adventure goes up a mountain and gets into trouble sometimes. And that's life for us. Like we struggle, we have difficult moments. So there's an option there. Just fill out a contact form and we'll get in contact with you. And you can have a chat whatever way you want to. So lots of things on there.
Fab. As a stay-at-home dad for 15 years, much respect. Dads need help. I think people used to look at me because I was a stay-at-home dad, and I used to say, I'm not doing better than you guys. I do this every day, but it doesn't make me naturally better. I'm going to struggle. The only difference is I get to struggle perhaps more frequently because you only have the children's responsibility, maybe at the weekend. Here's a really tough challenge. What do you think about this? We go out shopping. I've been with the kids all week. We go out for a cup of coffee. Joe's pushing the pushchair. Typical bloke. Doesn't help. Now, I never reacted to that, but how would you help people to see a different perspective on that one?
That's a good challenge. Good question. I think it goes back to the message of mum and dad need each other, and so there's never. I know, Dad. I know you especially. I mean, to be a stay-at-home dad, like that is tough work. You would have found it easier in the SAS, I'm sure. Although, don't quote me on that. But yeah. So just in support of dads everywhere. Like, do the best you can. Like, kids will get themselves into trouble. They'll fall over. Pushchairs will drop. Shopping will be spilled everywhere. Tantrums will happen. But all you can do is the best. And any negative attitude, just block it out because it's not helpful. It's not true. And yeah, ignore.
I drove tipper trucks. Was the last job I did for a while. It is the most physically demanding job I've ever done in my life because unlike lots of other HGV work, you never stop and pop for your brakes. So you go from job to job. You get gravel, you tip. You get tarmac, you tip. And that was on and on and on. It is the most physically draining job I ever did. Then I became a stay-at-home dad and thought, that was easy.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at the mum at home with the kids, please don't ever think it's easy. This is from someone who's done one of the most physically demanding jobs I know men know of doing. Being a stay-at-home parent is tougher.
I go to work for a break. So no, I just like to say enormous respect to all the mums out there. I was raised by a single mum, really, and just a force for nature, brilliant woman. I wouldn't be here today without her. My wife at home, absolutely insane. And every mum, you're doing amazing work. It may not get appreciated as it should, but God sees it, and certainly all the dads should see it too.
Amen to that. Thank you, Charlie or Chris, whichever we're going to tell you. Just give us the website one more time for the Praus Movement.
It's www.gentleandstrong.com.
I love that website.